So in part 2 of M2T3, we're going to look at graphing linear inequalities, and we'll also look at graphing systems of inequalities. So a linear inequality is like an equation, but the equal sign is replaced with our inequality symbols. Our four symbols are less than, greater than, less than or equal to, and greater than or equal to. So any pair of ordered pairs that results in a true statement when substituted into the inequality is what we call a solution. And we can represent the solutions to a linear inequality on what we call a half plane. That's graphed on a coordinate plane, and then we shade the region that would account for the solutions. So if we're looking at our graph, right, this would be my line that we would graph, just like we would graph a linear equation. And then when we actually go to write out the solutions, the area that we end up shading would be that region of solutions. Okay. So depending on the symbol that we have four different ways that our graph can look. If we have a less than symbol, we would have a dashed line when we graph. So when we go to actually plot the line, we would use a dashed line. And since we want solutions that are less than the equation, we would have to shade below the line. Okay. We also can have the greater than symbol. Since we want our solutions to be greater than the line or the equation, we would still have a dashed line on this one. Okay. But because we want them to be greater than, we would need to shade above the line. Our third symbol, we can have less than or equal to. Because our solutions can be equal to whatever's on the line, this is a case where we would have a solid line. And because we want our solutions to be less than, we would shade below. And then our last symbol would be greater than or equal to. So we would have a solid line in this case, and we would need to shade above. So before we get to actually graphing, let's go ahead and look at what a solution would look like mathematically using our inequality. Okay. So part A, we want to know, is this point 4, 5 a solution to the inequality y is less than or equal to x plus 1? Right. And the hint that they give us at the bottom, they say, let's go ahead and substitute the point into the inequality and see if it results in a true statement. So looking at our point 4, 5, 4 is my x coordinate and 5 is the y coordinate. So let's go ahead and substitute those values into our inequality. If we need to, we can simplify. So 5 is less than or equal to 5. We know that this is a true statement. So we can conclude that yes, the 0.45 is a solution. So now let's go ahead and take that same inequality, that y is less than or equal to x plus 1, and let's go ahead and try to graph it on our coordinate plane. So our first step is that we want to identify our slope and our y-intercept. So slope is always our number that's in front of x, and our y-intercept is our constant on the end of our function. So if we're looking at our y is less than or equal to x plus 1, my slope would be 1 over 1, and my y-intercept would be 1. Our second thing that we need to do is we need to decide, based on the symbol that we have, if we need to have a solid or a dashed line, and then we decide if we need to shade above or below. Okay. So looking at the symbol that we're given, we have less than or equal to. Less than or equal to, if we look back up at our chart, tells us that we need to have a solid line, and we need to shade below. Okay. So based off the symbol that we have tells us how our graph is going to look. So less than or equal to, I need a solid line, and I need to shade below. So let's go ahead and graph our line. We're going to plot the y-intercept at 1, and then my slope tells me to move up 1, right 1, up 1, right 1. And then our last piece, we have to shade our actual solution region. So I need to shade below the line. So I'm looking at all of the y values on my coordinate plane that are going to be below the line. So I'm looking at everything in here. So moving to the next page on our guided practice, this blurb up at the top basically gives us a synopsis of how we should graph, the type of line that we should have, and how we should shade. Okay. So if we are looking to graph this, our inequality has to be in slope-intercept form. So you need y on one side and then mx plus b on the other side. In our second box, they're reminding you that m is your slope and b is your y-intercept. In our third box, we're looking at the type of line, so you're deciding between solid or dashed, and then shading, you're deciding on above or below. So I want you to go ahead and try the U-try problems. You're going to do number 1 and number 2. Once you have those finished, I want you to check with the answer key that's posted on Google Classroom to look at how your solutions match the answer key. Okay. On number 2, if you get stuck on this one, make sure that you put this into slope-intercept form before you go and try to graph this.